Good evening, Dolphins fans. Welcome to another episode here of On the Fin Side with Kat and Paul. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, all of our social media outlets, the finfanatic.com website, as well as the Fansided Network. Here we are, week one of the NFL season. The Dolphins play the dreaded opponent here, the New England Patriots. It is Tua against Mac Jones in week one, former Alabama quarterbacks. And our co-host Paul is going to be at the game against the Patriots. Paul, what's your if we could take it aside for a second, how does your whole Sunday look when you go down to the Patriots game?
Well, it's going to look a little weirder than usual this week because so I'm getting up at way too bananas o'clock in the morning. I'm going to go coach a Pee-wee game, which is 7U football. I'm going to go coach and that's at 10 o'clock, but there's all the pregame setup, all that stuff. And then immediately following that, I'm coaching a Micros game, which is 9U football. And then as soon as that gets done, right around 2 o'clock, we're hopping in the car. The kid's switching jerseys to his Dolphins jersey, and we're racing up to Foxboro. So we won't be able to join the Dolphins New England tailgate that they've got going on at the stadium, but you know it's going to be a great time. We're going to get there probably about, I'd say, a half hour, 45 minutes before kickoff, and haul butt into the stadium, and walk around, probably run into a few of the folks I know and make sure I say hi and things like that. Guys like Dave Fazina, who's the president of that fan club, etc. And then hopefully just kick back after 2 wins here in the morning and watch a win in the afternoon as Miami goes to 1-0 and puts the Patriots on notice. It's going to be a lot of fun.
You better bring us some good luck because the Dolphins, I mean, I'm not going to say they need this game, but the Patriots are favored by 3 points. And we remember last year where in the first 2 games for the Dolphins in the regular season, played the same opponents. They played at New England and played the Buffalo Bills at home in weeks 1 and 2. The Dolphins got beat badly in week 1 of last season. And it was 21-11, but it should have been worse. And I'll even go a step further here, that with this offseason, when you take a look at several factors, the main story of the offseason really has been revolving around Tua. So when you take a look from the end of last year where Tua was benched in 2 games for Ryan Fitzpatrick, the Dolphins got creamed in their final game against the Buffalo Bills where Tua threw 3 interceptions. And in addition to that, this offseason, the main story, whether it's fair or not, talk about him in a sound clip of him not being in tune with the playbook last year. So my main point is that Tua needs to string some wins together here, not just for the Dolphins team, but also for himself right now. Because if the Dolphins go into this game and Tua doesn't look good and Mac Jones does, it kind of prolongs that narrative that things are going a little bit rough for Tua here, especially with the media.
Mac Jones had better look good because I believe the only other player I'm aware of on their roster that has quarterback experience right now is Malcolm Perry.
And he's out for this game.
And he's out for this game.
He's the only player out for this game.
So they must be moving Hoyer up from the practice squad as a COVID replacement. I mean, that's
Maybe.
all I can think. Like, it's because you look at this and you can have faith in a rookie, but Miami's got a pretty damn good pass rush, and Mac is not the most mobile quarterback. So I'd be looking at that and saying Hoyer's got to be moving up for the practice squad. But no, Tua does need to have a good game, whether he gets the win or not. I am projecting, and we'll get to this at the end of the show, that Tua does have a good game in this one, especially given the question marks that New England has at the cornerback position and Miami's talent and depth at wide receiver with everybody healthy. Well, everybody but Will Fuller, who's going to be out for this game, obviously, as we've talked about.
And that's one of the major storylines too, is at cornerback, up to a couple of weeks ago, we expected Stephon Gilmore to be in this game. He went on the POP list. He's out for the first 6 weeks. Um, JC Jackson at one cornerback spot, who's really hit or miss as a cornerback. He's one of the best playmaking cornerbacks in the NFL, but not a true number one type like some others in the league. And then on the other side, Jalen Mills may be getting, you know, most of the reps there at the outside cornerback spot. He's questionable for this game. And even if he plays, this is a player that, if you remember back in 2019, the Dolphins pulled an upset over the Philadelphia Eagles where Jalen Mills was getting a lot of snaps against Mike Gesicki and Devontae Parker. He was mossed all game. He's not a very good defensive back in terms of just lining up with opposing receivers.
Yeah, and if JC can't go, I mean, I know they're talking about maybe Jonathan Jones or Sean Wade taking a lot of the snaps, and that's not necessarily what you want from a team that was supposed to be stacked at corner. And you listen to Patriots fans chirp, and they believe they've got one of the best corner tandems in the East, and that's not what it's looking like going into this game. So anybody having to go up against Devontae Parker, Albert Wilson, Mike Gesicki, and company there is going to have a tough day, especially with guys like Jalen Waddle that can take a top off of defense.
So if you look back at the Dolphins versus Patriots matchup last year, the Dolphins won 22-12 late in the season. And if you look at the snap count from the opposing or from the Dolphins running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends in that game, there was no Myles Gaskin, there was no Devontae Parker, there was no Mike Gesicki. The top snap guys at wide receiver, running back, and tight end were Mac Hollins with 69 snaps, Lynn Bowden with 65, Isaiah Ford with 53, Savon Ahmed with 44, which, by the way, he had a 100-yard game in that matchup, Adam Shaheen 43, and Durham Smythe with 42. So Tua in that game went 20 for 26, 145 yards, an interception, but also ran for 2 touchdowns and a 10-point Dolphins win. So this, even without Will Fuller, he is going to have a lot more weapons. Devontae Parker, Jalen Waddle, Mike Gesicki. So that already favors the Dolphins at the wide receiver position against the Patriots defensive backs. And my hope, Paul, is that when you take a look at these matchups, the Dolphins stay aggressive from the beginning, spread the field out, and take advantage of those one-on-one matchups.
Yeah, and I think there's a two-way street as far as the secondaries are concerned. Miami is stacked in their secondary right now, and the Pats are depleted. And not only that, we did talk a little bit about Tua and Mac Jones. One thought that I have is you look at the Chargers game last year, and there's a point to this. The Chargers, I actually just discussed this with a buddy of mine that's a Chargers fan this week. When Miami went to that psycho defense, and you see the linebackers and linemen, etc., in the front seven moving all over the place, and you don't know who's dropping and who's coming. A normal NFL defense is a difficult look for a rookie quarterback. For Mac Jones to come out in game one and have to look at that psycho defense where guys are moving all over the place, you don't know who's coming from where, who's dropping where. I mean, if you remember, the Chargers, I think it was the start of the fourth quarter, gave up and just started handing the ball off because they were afraid to throw even though they were losing. And for Mac Jones to come out and have to see that in his first real NFL game with a shortened preseason, that's a very tough road to hoe for Mac Jones. If he can overcome that, then you're going to start seeing me become more of a believer in Mac.
Yeah, it's Joe Rose coined it, the Dolphins dancing seven. That's what he calls the front seven. And it's so perfect because they move around so much. And that, to me, defensively, you hit the nail on the head there. they need to keep moving around. It's not that they need to blitz every down, but they have to continue to show exotic looks in this game on defense to confuse Mac Jones as a rookie. Because I don't care, how intelligent you are, if Mac Jones is, and we're going to see that throughout the season. But he needs to, if the Dolphins can show some different looks at the end of the game. Why I'm pretty confident about this game for the Dolphins is that if they can show those looks, then they can confuse him, even if they're not bringing the blitz all the time, which they typically are.
Right, and even when they were moving around, though, I mean, I believe it was Christian Wilkins got the interception early on in that Chargers game where he dropped back in coverage, and the fear of the secondary over the top and not being able to recognize who was dropping in coverage. I think he got hit directly in the chest with the ball when he dropped 3 yards. I mean, it was just brutal. They tried to go to a quick slant on I believe it was a hot route, and it was just devastating. And that's where I think Miami is really going to have a chance to win this game, is the fact that even if you're only bringing 4, you have no idea which 4 from that front 7 are coming and who's dropping where.
Or if they're coming at all. I mean, and that's also part of it too, where the Patriots have a very good offensive line heading into the season. They've got Isaiah Wynn at left tackle, Michael Nwannu at left guard, David Andrews at center, Shaq Mason at right guard, Trent Brown at right tackle. That is a very good front line for them without many weaknesses. The hope is that the Dolphins can go at that defensive line, especially from a sturdiness standpoint, with a Raekwon Davis and Zach Sealer and Christian Wilkins, and hope to hold their own, and then bring those looks from the outside linebacker position and show those. I mean, basically anybody from this defense besides Byron Jones and Xavier Howard can blitz. That's what it comes down to. They'll blitz from the nickel. They'll blitz from the safety. They'll blitz at outside linebacker with Andrew Van Ginkel, or at the safety spot with pretty much whoever. So it's hard to tell heading into this week 1.
It is, and Zachary in our chat brought up the fact that New England came at Miami with a power running attack in week 1 of last year, and he's correct to a degree. A big component of that power running attack that they had in week 1 last year was Cam Newton and his legs. And the fact that there was a threat to run and run big from that quarterback position. And that's not a big arrow in Mac Jones's arsenal. So that was kind of the straw that stirs the drink as far as the Patriots run game in week 1 went last year. Now, the Pats running game is a little bit better this year. But given the fact that the talent level at the Patriots receiving positions and what you're having to commit from the front 7, I'm not as worried about the run game, even though their running backs are better than they were in week 1 last year, because the threat from quarterback is definitely mitigated by the talent.
Yeah, 2 things I'd like to park on for a second on that is exactly right from Zach. In week 1 of last year, the Patriots ran for 221 yards overall as a team. And that was really the sole reason why the Dolphins got dominated in that game. It was 21-11, but it should have been worse. I mean, if you look at Jerome Baker stripping N'Keal Harry at the goal line, that was basically a 14-point swing. So the Patriots dominated week 1 last year against the Dolphins. But secondly, as far as run defense is concerned, the Dolphins got better at run defense as the year went on, because a year ago today, we weren't talking about Raekwon Davis as somebody who was even good at that point, or Zach Sealer as somebody who was even good at that point. Now we're talking about a 3-man wall.
We were talking about Zach Sealer, but he even exceeded what we talked about, because I do remember talking him up going into the season last year. But, again, we didn't expect him to be what he was.
Hopeful, yes. But Zach Sealer was not thought of as a player that was more than somebody we were optimistic about. I
Yeah.
mean, he actually played he played 600 snaps last year and then got a contract extension. We didn't think that necessarily at the time, or at least I didn't, based on 2019 when he just had good size and a few good games.
Yeah, and I think the most talented thing that Miami has this year too that can help mitigate that running game that the Patriots have and the rushing attack that they have is Miami's receiving core against the Patriots secondary. Because if they push the ball down the field the way that it looks like they're ready to this season, with the receiving talent they have versus the Patriots secondary, if they can jump out to an early lead, that always mitigates the running game, unless we're talking about that one exception of the Chargers game last year where they were afraid to throw the ball.
Yeah, and speaking of that, the Dolphins, like I said earlier, if they spread the field and Tua is able to be protected and take advantage of those one-on-one matchups against the Patriots secondary, that's where they have to win the game. I hope. I mean, we always talk about them needing to be aggressive, but I think that more applies in this game because they were dealt a body blow a couple of weeks ago when Stephon Gilmore was out, and if they could be surprised here with Devontae Parker, Jalen Waddle, Mike Gesicki, and Albert Wilson there as their top four weapons, and Myles Gaskin in the backfield. I mean, if they spread the field out, I think that they have a better chance to win this game. And if not, what would kill me in this is if the Dolphins lost, let's say a 20-17 game because they weren't being aggressive enough on offense after talking all offseason about how, we remember the reports from minicamp about, Tua being too aggressive, throwing the interceptions. That's okay with me, but don't go into the season in week one against a secondary missing their best player and having the matchups and then not taking advantage because you're not aggressive enough.
No, absolutely, and it will be interesting. I don't know if you've seen Cat. And I know this is a little different storyline to see if Austin Jackson and Adam Shaheen play in this game. I know they're still on the COVID-19 list. Last I checked. I don't know if you've heard anything different.
Yeah, it's really going to be up till game time because it's a lot of things going on with that. Because if they're vaccinated, or if it was proven they're vaccinated, then it's only going to be a certain period of waiting list here for both of them.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry to say too that the rules are the rules. If Adam Shaheen is not, he's a liability at this point. I'm sorry. The rules are the rules. For crying out loud, the government is not going to tell me what to do, but the NFL rules are the NFL rules. A third tight end should not be trying to screw over the rest of the team. We could go on about that all day. But
is even our third tight end? Let's be honest.
A third tight end, for crying out loud.
He might be our fourth tight end.
Yeah, he could be fifth because they keep 5 on the roster. For crying out loud. He's not that good. Anyway, where were we?
Put him at fullback.
Carl Tucker made the practice squad.
Yeah, they overturned the hell out of the practice squad this week, didn't they?
As the 17th guy. That's a cap in your feather, isn't it?
So while you're looking at your notes, I've got a weird one here for the Patriots that I'm curious to see how it pans out because Nick Folk was not good enough to win the starting job as a kicker, but they put him on their practice squad and they're not 100% sold on Quinn Nordin. So apparently they're elevating Nick Folk due to COVID-19 rules for week 1, which only leaves one other spot, which I'm assuming goes to Hoyer to be the backup quarterback. But it's going to be interesting if they don't have the confidence in Nick Folk, but they're not sure they want to have Quinn Nordin kick for extra points or field goals. I know those are just 1- and 3-point plays, But that could really affect A, how the Patriots handle fourth downs if they're close, and B, you know, if they do kick it, those are missed opportunities at times.
Yeah, that could enter into the strategy for that, and it wouldn't surprise me if the Patriots have the ball 4th and 3 at the Dolphins 40 or 45, that they go ahead and go for it at that point. Or 4th and 3 at the Dolphins 35, you know. Yeah, I mean, a kicker has been a big part of the Patriots' entire process here, even throughout the Super Bowl years. I mean, Adam Vinatieri, Stefan Gostkowski. Yeah. So we'll see. But kickers, I'm not willing to talk about much on the show because we've got good ones. Jason Sanders.
We got the best in our kicker.
Pilardi, even Blake Ferguson, you know, as the long snapper.
Bird Ferguson. Got it.
Yep. So I'd say here too, when I look at the game, the major thing is that, and it's going to be a theme all year, the Dolphins have to protect Tua, because if they do, there is going to be opportunities opening up downfield. If the offensive line is even good enough, just to be average, that's all I'm expecting, average at this point. If you're telling me at the end of the year that the Dolphins offensive line and pass protection is middle of the pack, I'm going to take that, because I think Tua's feet are special. Not the rest of his physical skills necessarily, but his feet are very good. If he can be protected well enough to move around the pocket and find those receivers like Jalen Waddle, Mike Gesicki, Devontae Parker that can beat one-on-one matchups, that's what I'm looking for here, not just in this game, but throughout the entire year.
No, I'm with you on that. And I think Miami might actually trot out their best offensive line in week 1 if Austin Jackson misses this game, which I hate to say. I do think he's got the tools for the long term. But I think right now, personally, for me, their best offensive line might be Liam Eichenberg at left tackle, with Solomon Kinley at left guard, Michael Dieter at center, Robert Hunt at right guard, and Jesse Davis at right tackle, even though personally I'd flip Davis and Hunt. But at the same time, it's still probably their best 5 offensive linemen on the field right now.
I've got to tell you, I'll go a step further. I hope Austin Jackson misses this game and the Dolphins don't have to bench him in the process. I want to see what Greg Little and Liam Eichenberg for one game, whoever starts at left tackle, can do. Because I don't want the Dolphins to flat out bench Austin Jackson, because that would be an admission that there's no hope for the guy. And even me as the biggest Austin Jackson critic, I'm not there yet. But if he has to be shelved for a game, I'm kind of interested to see what happens at the left tackle spot. I got to be honest with you.
I'm with you. Like, it's when I watched tape on Eichenberg in college, I just walked away impressed in a lot of ways. And you know, our listeners know, our viewers know, when we were going into the draft that year, you and I were not super high on Austin Jackson, at least in the short term. His long-term potential and his physical traits are there, but his gameplay is not. I don't think he picks up blitzes well at this point. And he also gets beat around the edge as well. So I would love to see Liam Eichenberg and his short little arms get out there and seize the job.
32.5-inch arms.
So
I liked what I saw with Greg Little in a short sample size, too. I mean, I'd like to see Greg Little accidentally start a game at left tackle, and let's see what happens, you know, to be honest with you. But we'll see.
Before we move on, Kat, for our viewers that are new here, Kat knows a lot of things around the league. He can tell you who the third string left tackle is for Minnesota. I'm pretty sure if we really got down to it. The other thing that Cat knows, like often,
Rashad Hill's the backup. They don't have a third stringer, but go ahead.
There we go. And the other thing that Cat can tell you is, I'm pretty sure if I asked you what Hill's arm length was and you thought about it for a second, you could probably spit out what his arm length is.
Or Rashad Hill?
Yeah.
Probably 33 and 5/8.
Rest my case.
Yeah, boy.
It's impressive. It is. I love it.
So, Paul, let's get back to the main points here as far as the Patriots game here.
Yeah.
To me, it's a really important week 1 game here, because if the Dolphins lose a convincing game here to the Patriots, Mac Jones has 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, 280 yards passing, and Tua has a couple of interceptions against Bill Belichick. Let's be honest, it's going to get ugly here with the Dolphins media heading into week 2. And quite honestly, I think it should. So there's a lot riding on this for a week 1 game.
There is, and I'll take that a step further as far as if Tua has a slew of interceptions. This is going to be against backup corners pretty well, most likely. And on top of that...
At least one, yeah.
Yeah, at least one, possibly more. But on top of that, too, it's going to be with the weapons that there are no excuses as far as that passing game goes. There are no excuses. Short of the entire offensive line getting hurt and him having 7 guys hanging off him on each and every throw, there's no excuses. It's the Dolphins go in surprisingly healthy and surprisingly whole and as deep and talented as we've seen in a very long time, if ever, across the board. And it's something where I'm hopeful they push the ball down the field early, force the Patriots and Mac Jones to have to beat them through the air against Miami's secondary and confusing front 7. If they can do that, Miami can take this game easily. If they can push the ball down the field early. That's the biggest key here for Miami.
They have to be aggressive on both sides of the ball. And I know we can say that all the time, but it really applies in this situation because at receiver and tight end, the Dolphins have the matchups. And I mean, just as a comparison last year, like we talked about, I mean, the top guys at wide receiver, tight end, and running back who were getting the snaps in the Dolphins' last win with Tua at quarterback, Mac Hollins, Lynn Bowden, Isaiah Ford, Savon Ahmed, Adam Shaheen, Durham Smythe. Now this year, they've got Devontae Parker, Mike Gesicki, Jalen Waddle. They have the weapons. Will Fuller's not even here yet. Be aggressive. And then on the defensive side of the ball, this is why the Dolphins paid all that money. This is why we've been dealing with all this for Xavier Howard and Byron Jones. This is one of the best cornerback tandems in the league, and in our opinion, the best cornerback tandem in the league. So they're going up against the likes of at wide receiver. Nelson Aguilar is limping heading into this game already. And then after that, you've got Jacoby Myers, and you've got so you've got Jacoby Myers, and you have I've got to check the depth chart here. I'm drawing a blank here, but Jacoby Myers and
Nelson Aguilar, Jacoby Myers, Gunnar Olszewski,
Kendrick Bourne, receiver.
Matthew Slater, and we already know Malcolm Perry's not going to be there.
Yeah. So the Dolphins should Kendrick Bourne, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
For the 49ers, they did pay him. He had a good year, 800 yards last year. That's the benefit of doing a live show here. I can sometimes blank out.
That's all right. You knew what's his face's arm length, so we're good.
Yeah, we are good here. And on the Dolphins offensive side of or on the Dolphins depth chart here, as far as injuries, there's only one player that was limited, and that was Preston Williams. So
I'm not counting on him for much of anything. If he does, great. But it's somebody in our chat actually brought this up, and it's something that if what's his face there, Jalen Mills does have to miss this game, I would probably be willing to see Miami start Savon Ahmed at running back, trot him out on the field, and with him and Gesicki out there, go 5 wide.
Absolutely.
Right off the rip.
Absolutely. Because the biggest thing that the Patriots have in the middle of their defense is Kyle Van Noy at linebacker and Dante Hightower coming back. And Van Noy's, we saw
Slow.
a little bit last year, a little bit slower. And that there's been talk that this offseason, Van Noy has looked a little bit slow for them. And Dante Hightower hasn't played a game in about 2 years. If you can put Mike Gesicki out there and Savon Ahmed, who ran for 120 yards against the Patriots last year, you attack the middle of that defense with a lot of speed. And I got to tell you, I think Mike Gesicki is going to have a monster season here at the tight end spot. And if he does, he's going to get paid a lot of money because Mark Andrews just got a 4-year, $56 million contract from the Ravens. Gesicki's going to get more than that if he tops Andrews in receiving yards here this year in 2021.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. If I went 5 wide, I'd have Gesicki at the slot. I'd put Savon Ahmed in the interior slot, and I would bubble Savon Ahmed and his speed right around the edge and up the sideline, and attack the seam with Gesicki, and then pretty much just pick and choose several routes for the other guys that are going to draw off these corners that are backups, chasing folks all day. And if the pass is there down the field, great. If not, you've got Ahmed streaking up the sidelines on that bubble that Van Noy is not going to catch up to him. Hightower is not going to catch up to him. The safeties are going to be worried about Gesicki. And if they're not, you make them pay with Gesicki. If they are, you make them pay with Ahmed, and have those two be your leading receivers in the game and chuckle the whole way back to Miami.
I don't get excited about much, but I'm getting excited about these matchups heading into this game. I'll tell you what. Before we get to our NFL predictions for the season,
yep,
Paul, what is your prediction for the Dolphins Patriots here in this game?
I think I've talked myself into go big or go home. I'm going to go Miami 33, Patriots 13. I think they do push it up the field and force the Patriots out of their game plan. And that alone puts, if you can make the Patriots one-dimensional and make Mac Jones have to fight against this secondary and this front seven, this game is over.
I hope you don't live to regret those words.
I don't regret anything. Bring it.
I guess so. I'm going to say 26-20 Dolphins in this one. I think Tua comes out firing and taking advantage of those matchups in the secondary. I think Mac Jones also comes out and plays well and is protected well by a very good Patriots offensive line. But he is a rookie quarterback, and one late game interception, and I'm going to predict it's by Nick Needham at the nickelback spot, makes a difference in the game. So 26-20 Dolphins is my prediction. Let's get to our season predictions real quick here. So
I want to clarify one real quick thing, and I know we're running short on time here, but that 13 is not a touchdown and 2 field goals for the Patriots. That 33-13 for the Patriots is a touchdown or 2 touchdowns with a missed extra point. Just to clarify.
Okay. I'm also going to predict Austin Jackson starts and gets steamrolled 7 times at left tackle, which causes problems, and which is the reason why this game is close. Patriots, by the way, are favored by 3 points. So a lot of people believe that the Patriots are going to win this game. We'll see. So, Paul, let's get into our what we call our 7-7-7 drill here.
Yes.
We're not going to go through wins and losses for the entire NFL. We're gonna go 7-10 teams that we think are going to, at the end of the year, are going to be picking top 7 in the NFL draft, the top 7 playoff teams in no particular order, and the 7 NFC, obviously, playoff teams as well. So let's start at the draft spots. So who are your seven teams there?
Do you want me to count from 1 to 7 or 7 to 1?
1 to 7.
I think we're probably in sync on this one at number 1. And I think anybody out there that's going to pick against them for this is foolish. The Houston Texans are the biggest dumpster fire in sports, not even just football. I've got them handily at the number 1 overall pick, which they may need to replace Deshaun Watson at this point. Sorry, I was reading up on some Ram stuff today with Deshaun Jackson. But no, it's
2.
This is horrific. But number 2, I've got the Bengals. Their offensive line is trash. And Jamar Chase came out this week and said, oh, NFL footballs are hard to catch because they don't have the white lines on them and I can't see the ball. What a joke.
Yikes.
What a joke. I mean, if you haven't seen the quote, go read it. It's hilarious, especially from a team that drafted Jalen Waddle. At number 3, they started to fix their offensive line. They've got a rookie head coach. Their rookie quarterback held out, and I think the fact that they've got to face Miami twice, Buffalo twice, and New England twice helps put them in this spot ahead of a team that a lot of folks will have ahead of them in this. But for me, the fact that they've got tougher matchups is what puts them here, and that is the New York Football Jets. At number 4, I think the Lions are going to claw out some wins. You and I have been in the room with Dan Campbell. He makes you want to run through a brick wall and do things you never thought you could before. It's not just media hype and podium talk with him. I think he gets enough wins to pick outside of the top 3, even though he's going to be nowhere close to playoff contention this year in year 1. At 5, probably one of the most talented teams in the top 7 as far as individual talent goes, but it's a team that cannot put it together, cannot play together, except for 3 or 4 games a year, and that is the Raiders. They're a put-up, shut-up year, and I think it's a shut-up year. At 6, they traded for the mustache, and they've got Jalen Hurts. Neither one is the answer at quarterback, and they perpetually have receivers that can't catch footballs, along with a defense that plays poorly. And I'm going with the Philadelphia Eagles, followed by their NFC East brethren who have looked terrible this preseason, and their best player is coming off a catastrophic ACL injury and probably has a little bit of ring rust to knock off, and that's the New York Football Giants.
Okay. Yeah, we're not too far off here. So Paul has Texans at 1, Bengals at 2, Jets at 3, Lions at 4, Raiders at 5, Eagles at 6, and Giants at 7. I think that's a good list here. So we agree on a lot of it. Number 1 for me is the Texans. Number 2 is the Lions, which you also have going in your top list. Number 3 is the Jets. Number 4 is the Eagles. Number 5 is the Raiders. I agree that they're going down hard. And the last 2, I'm going to throw some curveballs out there. The number 6 for me is going to be the Arizona Cardinals.
Ooh.
And you could look and say, Kyler Murray, has put up a lot of fantasy football numbers. I've got news for you. When you take a look at the Cardinals' last 9 games, they were 3-6 last year, and they would have been 2-7 if not for the Hail Murray play at the end of the Bills game. So I think they're going down hard. I really do. And at cornerback, other than maybe Byron Murphy in the slot, they don't have an NFL starting cornerback. And I think that's going to hurt them in a division with the Rams, the Seahawks, and the 49ers, who have, the Rams have Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp. The Seahawks have DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, and the 49ers have Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel. I think they're going to be in a world of hurt. And 7, the Indianapolis Colts. A lot of people think that they're going to be good because they have a good defense. They got Carson Wentz. T.Y. Hilton is out till the middle of the year. Carson Wentz, I think, is terrible already, but he's also going to be starting the year hurt. Defensively, they have a good defense, but if that slides to middle of the pack, I think they're in a real bad situation, end up winning 6 games.
I can see that. So no Bengals for you.
No Bengals. I've got Bengals and Giants just a little bit afterward because Joe Burrow at least has the ability, and I'm preaching to the choir on that.
Oh, you know I love Joe.
If he comes back, I think the Bengals have a good shot of doing well. And defensively, I think they could be middle of the pack. So I think they get to 6 or 7 wins, get them outside of the top 7.
How Bengals like that would be to put themselves out of position to get the top guys yet again.
So let's go to the 7 AFC playoff teams here.
Oh, let's do the NFC first. Let's do the AFC.
I'm down with that. I'm going to go first on this here. Okay.
Yep.
So the 4 division winners I've got, as far as not only the division winners, but how I think they'll be seeded. Packers, number 1 seed. And I'm going to go with Dallas as a number 2 seed. I was saying this before last night that I think Dak Prescott could challenge for league MVP. I really do. And if their defense even gets to okay, I think they could win 11 games. I really do, even after last night. Packers 1, Cowboys 2, Bucks 3, 49ers winning the division in that tough NFC West at 4. And then the wild card teams, the Seahawks at 5, the Falcons at 6. And it's hard to pick the 7th team because the NFC is not all that great, but I'm going to go with the Vikings.
All right. So for me, my division winners, I mean the Bucks, I think pretty much everyone's got them there. I went ahead and said the Rams are going to take the West. Washington football team, I think, takes the East in a landslide, to be honest with you. And Green Bay wins the North by default at this point. What a terrible division that is, too. And then for my other teams that make the playoffs as a wild card, I've got the Seahawks, Dallas, and the Cardinals. So very opposite of you on the Cardinals here, I think.
Interesting. Yeah, and very opposite on 3 teams, the Rams, Washington, and Arizona. But I can understand that because if Kyler Murray, Matt Stafford, and Ryan Fitzpatrick do well this year, that we're talking about a completely different football team on all 3 fronts. Yeah. So that certainly makes sense. So you've got the Bucks, the Rams, Washington, Green Bay, Seattle is your top 5. And then after that, who were your last 2 there?
Dallas and the Cardinals.
Dallas and the Cardinals, okay.
And the Washington football team, I have to tell you, every time I look at their roster, I just shake my head because not every position is overrated talent-wise, but they don't really have holes. Yep. And that's a poor division as far with the Eagles and Giants, who I've got in my top 7 here.
Yeah, defensively, I mean, their front 4 is incredible. I mean, Chase Young at one spot, Montez Sweat at the other defensive end position, Matt Ioannidis, Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen. Man, you've got a very good front wall there. No, and then they also picked up William Jackson at a cornerback spot in the offseason. So, yeah, very impressive defense. I mean, one of the top 5 to 10 defenses heading into the year. No doubt about that. So let's get to the AFC, Paul. I'm going to throw it to you first.
My division winners, I've got the Chiefs, I've got the Titans, I've got Cleveland, and I think it's going to come down to a tiebreak because I've actually got Miami and the Bills both as 13-win teams in this 17-game season.
13-win team. Miami Dolphins. 13-4, you say, huh?
Look how improved they are from their 11-4 or 11-5 season last year. Look how improved they are across the board.
Which team?
The Dolphins.
So they went 10-6 last year.
10-6,
the playoffs, barely. But yeah, I've got my division winners are, and their seed number 1, the Chiefs, Number 2, the Bills. Number 3, the Ravens. Number 4, the Titans. I think the NFC South with the Titans is going to be the worst division in football. And by the way, for all our listeners, I still don't wish Ryan Tannehill good luck. I don't. He's a good guy. I just don't want to see him do well. I'm sorry.
He doesn't need your good luck, though.
Yeah, he needs Derrick Henry's good luck.
And, A.J. Brown and Julio Jones.
Yep, he's got a hell of a weapon core there. There's no doubt about that. Taylor Wan at left tackle too, just to take a cheap shot there. All right, so those are our division winners there. Who are your wild card teams?
So, whoever wins that coin flip between Miami and the Bills, and then I've got the Pats, and then the last spot was a struggle for me. I think it was a struggle between the Broncos and the Steelers, and I think Big Ben's arm does what it does last year and falls off towards the end of the season, and the Broncos slip by him and take that final playoff spot.
Okay. So to review your division winners here, you've got in the AFC, you've got the Chiefs, you've got the Browns, you got the Titans, and you've got the Bills or Dolphins.
That's going to come down to a lot of tiebreakers between the two.
Just pick one.
I'll give it to Miami then.
All right, so we're going with the Dolphins then. So
and I do want to say I've got Cleveland in there again by default because I had the Ravens a lot higher, but given the devastating injuries that they've had at the running back position, including I think Gus Edwards was lost for the year, I couldn't put them quite in playoff contention, which is weird to say as far as a Baltimore team like that.
All right, so who are your wild card teams in the AFC?
That would be the Bills, Patriots, and the Broncos.
Yeah, we're not too far off on that. I've got the Patriots. So my from 1 to 7, I'll just start at the top here. Number 1, Chiefs. Number 2, Bills. Number 3, Ravens. Number 4, Titans. Those are my 4 division winners in the AFC. Then I've got at 5, I got the Chargers. Number 6, the Dolphins. I think both teams win or go 10-7. And then 7, I've got the Patriots winning 9 or 10 games. I'm with you on that. I think the combination of Bill Belichick and their additions this offseason, getting 10 new starters, puts them at 7. I think there's no way they're not going to be a tough team. So, yeah, we'll revisit this. This is I've been documenting all this. We're going to keep this here until the end of the year. But, Paul, I look forward to doing this entire offseason with you here. Or offseason. I'm used to saying
regular season. Off-season's over, baby. Off-season's over. It's a game in the books now.
Man, we've been talking about the draft and the offseason for so long. Now it's the regular season, and we are going to have a great time here throughout the year. We're going to have 3 shows per week. One, we're going to have a interview with the opposition, the view from the opposing sidelines. We're going to have our breakdown, just like today, a little bit shorter usually on the weekend. And then on Sunday night, late night, we're going to recap the entire game, win or lose. We're going to be here every week. That's going to do it for our breakdown here of the Dolphins Patriots Week 1 matchup. I'm Brian Cat NFL on Twitter. Paul is fanatic_pick. You can follow us also on Facebook, Twitter, all of our social media outlets, as well as the finfanatic.com website and the Fansided Network. And if it's not on the right side and it's not on the left side, it is on the Fin side.